Hey everybody, I hope and pray that you're doing well. Today, as we come to our word from the Word, and today that word is evidence. Evidence. Now, I told you that in Job's arguments, as we've been going through the book of Job, his arguments are always that he wants a chance to almost stand trial with God. He wants to go to court with God, and that he wants to argue his case. Now, what do you need in a case like that? You need evidence. Well, that's one of the things he's trying to argue with his companions, if you want to call them that, these comforters that are coming here that are being pitiful comforters. But he tells them, he's trying to say, they're trying to tell him that, oh, well, the evil, the evil people, the wicked, they only last for a little while. And it's, the righteous, those who have repented of their sin, they'll live for a long time. Okay, but that's there again. We've talked about this before. That's not the case, and Job is arguing. Look, you've seen it on both sides, and he's even arguing the fact that there's so many that seem to be getting away with murder. Those who are getting away with just horrendous crimes, and he goes through Job chapter 24, and he's talking about all these innocent people, essentially innocent people who are going through these things, righteous people who are suffering, and it seems like the wicked are just continuing to prosper. They have no cares. They seem to be living a carefree life. And he goes down this long list. And I mean, even as you read it, we can even see applications today. I mean, if we were to say that, man, there's some righteous people, some godly people who are suffering from cancer, who have lost loved ones to cancer or COVID or a car wreck or some other, maybe even a natural disaster or some other devastation. And we begin to look and we say, well, God, it's just not fair. Look, notice what Job says at the end of Job chapter 24 to argue his case, right? He tells them about all these things that have been done to the innocent people. And he says, look, at the end of Job 24, verse 25, he says, now if it is not so, who will prove me a liar and make my speech worth nothing? Now, if we continue to go down that pathway, then we begin to try to build our case against God. And I think sometimes we can get caught up like Job did. Job got caught up in trying to argue his case. And even right now, you're probably thinking of different circumstances, and maybe even if you're like me, times where we've kind of argued with God and said, God, don't you see what's going on? God, don't you know what I did? I mean, it would be something like, God, don't you know what I did for that person last week that was in need? They asked me, that stranger came up and asked me for money, and I gave them that money. God, didn't you see that? So why am I being punished now with my car breaking down or something to that extent? Right? We'll go through all these things and we'll try to rationalize everything that we do and then lift it up as though we're perfect or nearly perfect. And then we judge God's actions as though he's imperfect and treat him as though he can make a mistake. Now, even if we know that he can't and we know that he's always right, we still fail and we still falter in our walk. But here's I was saying all of that just to say this simple truth that I want to share that the Lord just kind of told me as I was making notes, even the beginning of the week, making notes for every day this week and what we were going to talk about. I kept thinking about arguing the case and how Job wanted to argue his case before God. He was even arguing his case before his friends, and he kept looking for evidence to argue his case. And we'll do the same thing, but I think the problem is that we don't need to look so much for proof to argue our case. We need to look to proof to argue his grace. See, when we begin to look at situations and realize his mercy and his grace and the things that he is not allowed to happen to us, the things that he has blessed us with, when we begin to look at those things, then we can't compare those. So whatever good we think we might have done, it pales in comparison to the goodness and the greatness of God. It pales in comparison to the mercy and the grace of God. So maybe today, Let's just put all the evidence aside about everything we want to argue about, all that we've done and how we deserve whatever. Let's get that attitude. That's a worldly attitude. Let's get that attitude and push it aside. Let's look to God. Let's get in His Word. Let's get to spending some time in prayer. And why don't we, instead of making a case and making a long list of things that we want to ask God to show us and interpret for us because we just don't understand what He's doing, why don't we make a list of all the ways that God has been gracious to us today? All the ways that He showed us mercy today or yesterday or this week or this month or this year. Today, don't look for evidence to prove your case. Look for evidence of His grace. God bless you, and I pray you have a great, great day.